In this lab, crickets were observed for their territorial and sexual behavior. The crickets being observed were house crickets. Crickets are different as far as physical traits when it comes to separating males and females. Females have ovipositors so that they can lay eggs, and males are the only ones who can chirp due to a special wing that they have. This chirp is important in attracting females for mating. Males are usually the ones that are very territorial, and their behavior was ranked on a scale of 1 to 5 when other crickets were introduced into their territories. Behavioral response will be observed when both males and females are introduced into their territories to see if there is a difference in response. The crickets were also observed to see which habitat they preferred out of soil, sand, and stones. The objective of this lab is to observe cricket behavior in each of these scenarios for both males and females. It was hypothesized that the territorial male will show strong aggression when another male is placed into the cage, and that all crickets, when given the choice, will prefer the soil substrate to reside in. Overall, there is not much aggression as originally thought when two males are put in the cage together, and soil was preferred for both males and females. The materials and methods used for this experiment were stated in the Lab 4 protocol entitled Animal Behavior 2, Territorial and Sexual Behavior. There were no changes in the protocol. For the substrate testing part of the experiment, the cage was set up with 4 squares containing a different substrate. It was done in this pattern so that the cricket would not go over one substrate to get to another. This picture right here shows how the cage was set up. For the first part of the lab where territorial behavior was observed, it was hypothesized that the males, when introduced to each other, will approach each other and start fighting. The male that was introduced into the environment later on will not be the dominant one. The first interaction where two males were introduced to each other had high contact and aggression when the time started out, but it decreased as time went on. The aggression only happened when they ran into each other by accident. When this did happen, the aggression was high. The male who was in the cage first was the dominant one. The interaction between the two males can be seen in this picture right here. After this interaction was observed, a female was added to the cage with the two male crickets. There was no real aggression between the two males when she entered, and in fact the female happened to show aggression towards the males. She was also the one to approach them, generally speaking, and appeared to be dominant. There are instances of chirping from the males with this situation. The interaction of the female with the males can be seen in this video. The final interaction of crickets in this cage occurred when one more male and one more female was added for a total of 3 males and 2 females. Several different behaviors were observed here that were not observed in the previous situation. The 2 females fought the most. One male did not fight a lot, but guarded the females quite often. The other male crickets did not care about the females that much. This includes the male that was in the cage originally. This video shows how the male cricket followed and guarded the female crickets. After this interaction was observed, these crickets were no longer used, and a new territorial male was selected in a new cage. A female was added in with him. With this interaction, there was a lot of chirping coming from the male right off the bat. There were a few instances of the male following the female and guarding her. After about 4 minutes of observation, there was not a lot of interaction with the 2 crickets, and it seemed as if they lost interest in one another. The male was always the dominant cricket. An instance of the male guarding the female cricket can be seen in this video here. After the situation was observed, another male was introduced into the cage. The situation seemed to show the least amount of interactions between all of the crickets. Aggression is very low in almost all contact situations, and there were several instances of chirping coming from one or both of the males when they did happen to come in contact with the female. This video shows how little interaction all three of the crickets had with one another. The last observation of territoriality and sexual behavior for the crickets occurred when another male and another female was added. One male in particular was attracted towards both females. Another male showed the most aggression towards the other males. The last male had a little interaction with neither the other males or the females. This situation in general did not have high aggression. This video shows how the male, who is marked in blue, stays near the other two crickets, which are the females. After observing all these situations and the interactions that occurred, several conclusions can be made. When two crickets encounter each other, their interaction depends on what sex they are. It does appear that crickets are territorial, but only to a certain extent. After a certain amount of time, the territorial cricket almost gives up or simply loses interest in the other. When it comes to territoriality, the resident cricket is certainly the dominant one over the introduced cricket. Crickets defend their territory from another male cricket more when females are present in the picture. Fighting does not always appear to resolve the situation, as some crickets keep to themselves when they are introduced into the territorial cricket's habitat. It was previously thought that cricket song was only for mating, which was observed, but it also was observed that males chirped when other males were present, which could be a sign of territoriality as well. Overall, the cricket data did support our hypothesis, however the correlation was not as strong as we had hoped it to be. In the second part of the lab, male and female crickets were observed to see which type of substrate they preferred. 3 crickets of each sex were observed for 5 minutes each, and the total number of seconds each spent on every substrate was added up. This can be seen in Figure 1, shown right here in this graph. This data is only for our individual group. The data for the class was analyzed after looking at the group data. The time each sex spent in each substrate was averaged. The time was given in seconds. This can be seen in Table 1 here. Substrate preference was also graphed to show visual representation. This can be seen in Figure 2 here. After looking at both the class and the individual group data, it is clear that there is a preference for soil substrate in crickets. So data is not different than the class data. This is true for both males and females, although the female preference is definitely stronger than the male preference. This might be because females are looking for a safe place to deposit eggs, and the soil is best suited for this. All of this data supports our hypothesis that crickets prefer the soil substrate.